Hello, Pauper fans. This is Mathonical. You're joining me for round 4 of the second recorded Pauper League with WB Pestilence. Opening hand is a perfectly reasonable one. We've got lots of early plays, we've got part of our WB combo, and we have some removal. We'll just need to get a swamp, and that will be online, so totally happy keeping this one. Secluded Step, likely facing another Boros player, so that is good news for us. And Prophetic Prism, looking like it is indeed the case. I would like to get another planes there because most of our spells are using white, but we really need to make sure that we have our black source. That's going to allow us to cast the Snuff out whenever we need to. And I'm going to go ahead and cast it here. Basically, I just don't want to, like, if I'm taking 3 damage, I might as well just take 1 more and remove the Seeker forever, since I don't have a way of reasonably moving it going forward. And I'm just going to play out a bunch of creatures, so things are looking not bad at the moment. We're happy getting more land drops, and we're very happy getting the last piece of our Comilot combo. So we're just going to play all that out. We've got a pretty good board state here. My opponent has been missing their land drops, although they did finally find the Great Furnace here. I'm just going to go ahead and swing with everything. Basically, I'm just saying, opponent, you have to show us what you got because, well, we're going to slowly beat you down at some point, and we want to make sure we have the life advantage. I also want to make sure my opponent is staying back on the defensive, so they're not just chipping in for random damage. They did have a lightning bolt, so we're down to 3 creatures now, but that's no big deal. Just going to go ahead and draw some additional cards. And more cards. There's a Pestilence, so now we're in business. Going to go ahead and play out our Thraben Spectre. We're going to look to cycle our Ash Barons, and there's no point in throwing away one of our Thraben Spectres just to get through 2 damage, so not going to do that. That's not going to do anything against us. Basically what we're going to be able to do now is just play our Pestilence down, activate it for 1 and swing with everything. Glinthawk can trade with any one of our creatures, but we're fine with that if our opponent wants to make that trade. Going to go ahead and cycle the Ash Barons, pull another Swamp out of the deck, so we've got plenty of black sources for our Pestilence. And we're just going to play that down, activate it for 1, and we're going to swing in. So things are looking quite in our favor already. Thankfully we get to avoid the long drawn-out game that this could have been, but that's mainly just because our opponent did end up getting a little stuck on lands and wasn't able to play out as many of their spells as they would have liked. So since we're already winning this game pretty handily with just the Pestilence, I don't really want to show the Grim Harvest, if at all possible. Basically, I don't want my opponent bringing in additional graveyard hate if they don't know what kind of build I'm on, and since this isn't a well-known build, since I haven't posted anything on this yet, I'm just going to hope that I can kind of sneak into game 2 without them knowing about this. I'm going to go ahead and use the Chainer's Edict after wiping their board with the Pestilence, simply because I don't want to activate it a second time, since that would remove all of my Thraben Inspectors. And basically here we've already got lethal on board. We got lethal in multiple ways since we can attack. We've got Pestilence. Realistically, there isn't any way that we can lose this one. So opponent's still playing it out. I'm assuming that's just because we are down 30 to 40 seconds on the clock, and to be honest, it is perfectly reasonable to try and, if you've got the time advantage, let your opponent use a bit more time, especially in a matchup that could be as grindy as this one. So we were able to get the win quite handily in the first game. So we're just going to jump on over to game number 2. Looking at the sideboard, it's going to be fairly similar to what we did last time, except this time I chose not to bring the Castigate. I debated on it, and even though it does get rid of a Flaring Pain pretty handily, this time I decided not to do that. We are going to bring in the Core Sanctifier, and this time I decided to bring in some Doomblades. Basically, I decided just to keep a few more creatures off the battlefield, just to make sure we make it to the Pestilence. Basically, I'm still trying different ways of playing this matchup, seeing what is optimal. Let's see. Left out one of those. I took out one of the Chainer's Edicts, simply because they have a lot of interchangeable parts that would be sacrificed to it. Oh yes, I did take out the 2 Night's Whispers. Basically I decided I'd rather just have removal just to kill some creatures. I'm still not sure what matchups it's correct to bring out the Night's Whisper, so I decided to try it out in this one. And that's basically all I did, was just the 3-card swap in this one. Uh, please let me know in the comment section below what are your thoughts on sideboarding in this matchup. I feel like there's a lot of different routes you can go. And we'll take a look at our opening hand. Got the Kami Lock right off the start, and we did not show the Grim Harvest last time, so it may be a surprise. We're going to go ahead and keep this one. Another Kami, that is perfectly reasonable. And we're just going to go ahead, get another white source, because since we have a lot of white to play, we definitely do want 2 white sources this game. And we're just going to continue cycling our Ash Barons when possible, and while this may feel a little clunky, this is thinning out our deck for our future turns, and basically we fixed all our mana, no problem. Playing a Glint Hawk is no problem here. I'm just going to continue to attack into it with the Lone Missionary. If our opponent wants to trade, that's cool with us. Because my opponent has 2 Prophetic Prisms, I'm not going to play the Core Sanctifiers here. There may be a better opportunity at some point in the future. So instead, I'm just going to hold up a Doomblade or a Grim Harvest, depending on how I feel. Basically, I'm just going to take the hit here. I'm actually more afraid of the Seeker of the Way, simply because that can actually get a lot of value over the long haul. Although we do have the Kamis, so, you know. With the Disfigure, I'm just going to get one of the Glint Hawks just to get in for a bit of damage, and this will prevent us from taking a lot of damage over the long haul. We've got the Unmake if we want to get rid of the Glint Hawk, and since my opponent isn't really doing anything, I'm tempted, but I end up not casting it there. Just want to see what they have. Draven Spectre, that's fine. I'm going to offer up the trade here simply because we're not really in it to race, and I'm just happy trading any creature. And since they were not able to crack the clue, I feel like that's a good enough opportunity to cash in the Core Sanctifiers. It prevents them from drawing 1 additional card at least. And the opponent decides to crack their clue immediately, just in case we try to do that again. I do understand that. We're now able to start getting for some damage, except it does eat a Lightning Bolt, that's fine. We're just going to try and draw some additional cards, and I do want to play the Secluded Step because we do want to try and get to that 6 mana sweet spot in case we want to start going infinite with the Kami loop. Opponent doesn't do anything there. Basically, they want to try and make sure they hold the Monarch, but as we know from the last game, we can definitely let them have the Monarch, and we're just going to aim to deck them until we have some better plan to come across. So, let's just see what our opponent's going to do. Sends Enlistment, that's fine. Here, I'm actually going to kill the Glint Hawk, mainly because I don't want to be using the Kami Lock combo just for 2 damage. And I just want it to be a completely stable board state. Drawing the bounce land is great. It means we get to bounce our Bajuka Bog. This will allow us to get rid of the Sens Enlistment permanently going forward. And we do want to hold up enough mana to start our Grim Harvest combo. So, things are looking good. We've got our Kami Lock. Unless our opponent brought in Graveyard Hate, this will stick, and with 2 Kamis, they can't really stop us from having it, since we would be able to sack a Kami in response to get the Grim Harvest back, and then we still have the combo. Drawing additional cards, I don't mind if our opponent does that, since we can mainly invalidate their deck. We just have to be careful of getting burned out, so we are going to want to draw some of our Prismatic Strands at some point, but I think we've got quite a few turns to wait for that, especially since we have 26 life. We do want to keep our life total as high as possible just to prevent ourselves from getting burned out. Our opponent is continuing to get additional flyers, and yeah. I'm not even going to allow us to take 2 damage because we want to make sure that we're not going to get burned out. We might as well use our mana for something, so using it to get back Grim Harvests is what we're going to do. If our opponent fully taps out, which they do, I'm going to use the Grim Harvest to get back the Kami. If they did not tap out there, I was not going to use it, simply because we would not have had 3 mana with which to get it back again, and we got to make sure we keep this combo going. So do be careful of when you're using the Grim Harvest, just to make sure they can't kill anything. And now with this much mana, we are able to get back the Grim Harvest, cast it, and keep up 3 mana again to get it back if they were to remove something for an additional time. They're continuing to swing in. We're just going to continue to use our Kami Lock. It's working pretty well. Going to use the Grim Harvest, get back our Kami, and yeah. We're solidly in a stable board position now. Now we just need to find a Pestilence and some Prismatic Strands. Like, we have one, but to be honest, you can never get too many Prismatic Strands in this matchup. Unless, of course, they have a Flaring Pain, in which case this would do nothing, but unfortunately we did not bring in the Castigate this time to try and pick it out of their hands, so something I probably would bring in the future. I did like having that security from the previous round. Gonna go ahead and offer the trade just to see if they'd use any kind of burn spell. They decided not to, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use the Kami anyways. So things are still looking pretty good. Even though I did bounce the Secluded Step here, I'm not actually going to cycle it just because we do need to make sure we keep up enough mana for using the Grim Harvest Recover. And then we want to make sure, like, taking a couple damage off the Firebolt here, I don't mind. I'm basically saving this Prismatic Strands to stop 4 damage at once, so Galvanic Blast essentially, and only that. Gonna go ahead and get back the Kami, we're gonna play that. 2 Prismatic Strands, this is exactly where we want to be now. This should prevent us from losing to a flurry of burn spells as long as they don't also have a Flaring Pain. But not many Boros lists do run the Flaring Pain, so yeah. Goes for the Galvanic Blast, so I'm going to go ahead and cast a Prismatic Strands. Another Galvanic Blast. I was debating using the Prismatic Strands in response to that, but it looks like my opponent decided to just cast a flurry of burn spells, thinking that that was our one Prismatic Strands. So there is, how many? Like 18 points of burn on the stack. That's quite a lot. I'm just going to cast another Prismatic Strands. If they have the Flaring Pain, then they got us, but turns out the opponent does not have a Flaring Pain, and we just stopped all of their burn spells, so they did concede. Lucky for us. So it was a bit of a close one. I was at this point considering starting to use the Grim Harvest to start pulling back, or like attacking in with the Lone Missionary just to have it die so I can pull that back and start gaining some additional life. But yeah, things worked out. Pestilence would have made this a lot easier. Didn't get that. Prismatic Strands saves the day. I am down to just 2 copies of this in the main board. There is an argument to have 3, but I decided with the Kami lock as basically the rest of the fog package, I didn't want to load up too much on that effect, but 2 was the perfect amount in this game. That's it for round 4. I will see you in round 5.